EVs are a bad investment, and we're not saying that because of the lack of convenience, range anxiety, or similar things. No, we actually mean it, because the latest study shows that an average EV is going to lose half of its value over 5 years. If you wonder why, make sure to stay with us, because we bring you 5 huge reasons why EVs depreciate extremely. Welcome to Evolution Tech, where technology meets tomorrow, leading the charge into the ever-evolving landscape of electric vehicles, EVs, and groundbreaking green technologies. Number 5. Battery concerns. Of course, the battery is the first thing that comes to mind. This precious component is of worth as much as 50% of an electric vehicle. At the same time, it's the most vulnerable part of the vehicle in terms of the fact that it degrades over time and loses its capacity. So from the perspective of someone who's looking for a used EV, this means that the time for battery replacement will eventually come at some point of exploitation, leading to investment that could easily cost $10,000, $20,000, or maybe even more. The main issue here is the fact that the battery is mostly a bunch of chemicals that tend to degrade over time for various reasons. With a limited lifespan in mind, most manufacturers give an 8 to 10-year warranty in the batteries, but you never know when the time for replacement is going to come. It could take much longer, but it could also come sooner than you would expect, which is quite problematic when purchasing a used EV. In other words, assessing EVs is very tricky. With gassed cars, it's relatively easy to check the state of a used car. You check the engine for some leaks, check the suspension, brakes, and bodywork. Then if everything is okay during the test ride, you can be pretty sure that you're buying a used car in good condition. After all, there's the service book to check for oil changes and other services. With EVs, there's no way you could check the battery. The battery management system doesn't tell much, and it's also quite unreliable. An OBD reader won't help you much either, so it's pretty much impossible to know the actual state of the battery, especially if we consider that there are so many outside factors that impact the degradation. Just think of outside temperatures, high or low, and not to mention high charging and discharging current. Finally, don't forget about things like overcharge and over-discharge. None of these things can be checked like you can check oil change intervals and similar things on gas-powered cars. Simply said, there are too many question marks, so it doesn't surprise that there aren't many potential buyers ready to accept the fact that they'll probably have to invest thousands of dollars in a used car just to install a new battery. Consequently, this also imposes as one of the key factors for high depreciation rate. Number 4. Massive discounts on new EVs. Prices of new cars always determine the used car market, and things are no different with EVs. The only problem is that EVs are getting cheaper every year due to massive discounts. Just take a look at the recent price war that started in the third quarter of last year. Tesla, Ford, and other manufacturers are giving massive discounts on their new EVs, which can now be bought for 10, 20, or even 30% less money compared to just a year ago. Simply, dealers have no other option because the supply exceeds demand significantly. Dealer lots are full, and it takes 117 days on average to sell out the current inventory, which is way over the industry average ratings. All this authors say new EVs is a way better choice than used ones, and it doesn't surprise that used EVs depreciate even quicker due to the obvious lack of interested buyers. Once paid, they now correlate to these updated prices, which only increase the depreciation rate even more. In some extreme cases, we can see EVs losing 50% of their value in just 3 years, and luxury models are particularly affected. Just take a few Porsche Taycan models advertised for sale as an example. One of them, a 2020 Turbo with just under 15,000 miles, comes with a current asking price of $89,999, even though it had an original MSRP of $179,600. That's a drop of $89,300. Or you could check a 2020 Turbo S with $2,635 me at a current asking price of $105,900. That model was paid nearly $27,000 back in 2020, meaning that it already lost more than $100,000 of its original value just in 4 years. Today, the average depreciation rate of EVs in a 5-year period is around 50%, while models like the Tesla Model S have a depreciation rate that goes up to 55%, which is notably higher compared to gas-powered cars, which tend to lose around 38% of their value after 5 years. Number 3. High running costs. For years, we've been listening about the key advantage EVs have over internal combustion cars: lower running costs. In theory, electric cars should be cheaper to run than gas-powered cars. First of all, the electricity should be cheaper than gas. Then there's the matter of maintenance, as EVs don't require classic maintenance services such as oil changes, for example. Finally, EVs should be more reliable due to the fact that they feature fewer parts than internal combustion cars. However, reality says that things are quite the opposite. First of all, electric car charging cost could be lower compared to gasoline, but only if you always charge your EV at home, and that's pretty much impossible. EV owners need to visit public stations occasionally, and there the electricity is anything but cheap, especially if you're willing to cut the charging time and use a DC unit. In that case, the cost is pretty much the same and sometimes even higher compared to gas refueling. As for maintenance, there are no fluid changes, but on the other hand, repairs are way more expensive, especially when it comes to body parts after collisions, both because of the lack of trained personnel and the specific design of electric vehicles. For that reason, insurance premiums are also notably higher, which also adds to running costs and contributes to the overall price depreciation. And we almost forgot about tires. EVs are much heavier, which leads to quicker tire wear, so be prepared to change the rubber more frequently on your EV. Number 2. Low reliability scores. When people buy used cars, they primarily look for a vehicle that's durable and reliable. That's why models from car makers like Toyota hold their value extremely well. EVs were also expected to feature high reliability ratings, but it turned out that things were quite the opposite. Despite the fewer parts, EVs are less reliable. According to a recent survey from Consumer Reports, they cause 80% more problems compared to traditional gas-powered cars for various reasons. Of course, most complaints are about the battery and its performance. Charging issues are common for pretty much every EV model around. Well, there's also the matter of battery performance. In many cases, batteries tend to lose their capacity much quicker. Moreover, batteries tend to underperform for several reasons, including cold weather, heavy exploitation, etc. Then there's the matter of overheating as well as underperforming electric motors, something we saw on the Mustang Mach-E, for example, but that's only one part of the problem. Although simpler in terms of the overall design, electric cars are advertised as vehicles of the future, and pretty much every car maker likes to point out those futuristic aspects of its models in the way that they over-rely on tech features, especially when it comes to the infotainment system. Physical buttons and controls pretty much don't exist in EVs, and such complex infotainment systems are extremely prone to errors and malfunctions, so much so that even the tiniest problem can stop the car from running. All in all, battery and infotainment issues are the most common, but they aren't the only ones. Many consumers also complain about the build quality. Simply, car makers are doing everything to cut production costs, including the neglected quality control. Badly assembled body panels and faulty interior components are just some of the things that come to mind. Number 1. EVs get outdated soon. The EV industry has been on a swing in the last few years, not in terms of sales numbers, but in terms of technological leap. If you look at certain models from just a few years ago, they already look outdated every now and then we see a different automaker introducing a new revolutionary technology. This particularly refers to the battery technology. Just a few years from now, what's competitive today will look outdated. Car makers are constantly breaking barriers when it comes to max range, not to mention the charging speed, which is currently one of the major deal breakers for many potential EV buyers. In such a set of circumstances, EVs naturally depreciate at an extreme rate. Many wonder if it makes any sense to purchase an EV that's already a few years old and relatively outdated and could look like an antiquity just a few years from now. That's one of the main reasons why EVs depreciate and will depreciate even more as technology advances. Just a few years from now, super luxurious EVs that cost hundreds of thousands will most likely be worth nothing, and therefore no one wants to buy them. The used EV market almost doesn't exist for obvious reasons, and with all those new EVs coming, things can only get worse in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.